Hello and welcome to this session, Developing Qualitative Research Questions. This is one of a series in the Research Methods module. I'm Dr. Angela Cotton and I work in the College of Health and Social Care as an educator and researcher at the University of Salford. So I'll begin by going through the aims and objectives. The overall purpose of the session is to enhance your understanding of the development of qualitative research questions. We will explore what makes a sound research question within a range of qualitative research traditions, and how ideas for research are worked upon to form researchable questions which are congruent with the chosen tradition. A theme of the session is the need for worthwhile and ethically sound questions which are in keeping with the chosen methodological design. We will also look at how and why qualitative research questions need to evolve as the research progresses, and how writing and reflexivity are integral to what is very much what we call an iterative process. The language of qualitative research will be explained as the session develops, and I have provided published references to key concepts where possible. There are a number of definitions of qualitative research. As this one by Cresswell suggests, qualitative research is concerned with the process of understanding social and human issues. The need to acknowledge the complexity of human experience and phenomena is integral to this. The intention then is to explore participants' perspectives within, as far as is possible, the everyday, real-world setting. This idea of the perspectives of participants being central is echoed here by Strauss. The purpose of qualitative inquiry continues a tradition of undertaking socially relevant research, which may contribute useful understandings of the lives of diversely situated human beings. The focus upon lived experience, an attempt to capture life as it's lived, has considerable importance and relevance to the context of health and social care. The need to appreciate and understand the lived experiences of people who are in ill health or who may have specific social care needs is crucial if we are to have ethically sensitive, evidence-based care. Qualitative research makes a significant contribution in ensuring that the perspectives of often vulnerable people are listened to and heard by policymakers, health and social care practitioners, and, more broadly, made visible within the public socio-politicised domain. Qualitative research has possibilities then in terms of its influences. In order for our research to have credibility, we need to think about how such research is conducted. There are some very important factors to take into account when planning a study which has the purpose of responsible representation of human life. This is particularly important when we may be exploring or making public findings about aspects of experience which are highly personal, sensitive and private that would otherwise be unseen. The value of sound qualitative research in contributing to health and social care practice depends then upon a range of ethical and epistemological issues. The worthwhileness and value of the study relates to how well it's been thought through, from the earliest of ideas for a research proposal through to the final drafting and dissemination of findings. A good study is very much predicated upon planning, preparation, and a clear sense of purpose. Having clear research questions that are answerable and that have been effectively anchored in the most appropriate research design will help in navigating the research process. Here are 5 qualitative research traditions as identified in Cresswell's most recent text. When you're thinking about identifying your research topic and the purpose of the study and subsequent questions, it will be important to be informed sufficiently on these so that you can locate your work in relation to them. I'll come back to look at how research questions may be framed within these traditions or frameworks. You may find that what you want to find out perhaps lends itself more readily to one specific approach, or, as we'll come to, you may decide to make a deliberate decision to locate your research within one, or utilise philosophical elements in a more eclectic, postmodern framework. Here, I've outlined some of the potential philosophical and theoretical influences upon the qualitative research endeavour. Their significance to the project of conducting a qualitative study will be dependent upon what the research is hoping to achieve. It will be becoming apparent that good research design includes clear intentions of what you want to know about and how you think you may go about finding out. The research questions give focus, providing you with an, albeit tentative, roadmap for your research journey. They will be framed to encompass the what, about whom, and where of the study, so that the researcher does not go off track. Cresswell again here gives us the idea that even though these are navigational tools helping us to find our way through a complex, often messy, methodological process, they are not fixed in a once and for all sense. This is important in qualitative research. As our understanding of the issues become deeper, then our questions will be refined to reflect this changing conceptualization of the issues. Okay, so what kinds of questions then are asked in qualitative research? As will be evident from our discussion up until now, qualitative research questions are interested in the subjective human experience and are concerned with exploring meanings and understandings of a particular phenomena for those taking part in the study. The emphasis is very much upon obtaining data which has depth and richness and acknowledges the complexities inherent in human experiences. The process of developing understandings of these data within the social context they are part of enables the addressing of research questions which are located within a specific research tradition. When you look at some of the qualitative research methodology literature, you will see that some texts explore specific data collection methods and suggest possible research questions which could be addressed using these methods. I have drawn here upon chapters from Joanna Neal's edited Research Methods textbook. Within this book, Coombs and her colleagues here give us a sense of the kinds of research question that could be addressed by using in-depth interviews. Within the same text, this author, Julia Foster Turner, shows the kinds of question that could be addressed using focus groups. Looking at these, you can see how these questions could be framed in such a way as to be a central question in the study or a series of sub-questions, and we'll come back to this point later in the session. Participant observation would be appropriate where the research topic was related to the culture of the setting. Here, there's an interest in insider perspectives within a particular field setting. This could be a specific health or social care setting, or an organisation which has a particular brief or responsibility, for example, an accident and emergency department, or a social services setting, or a community centre, or residential care service. Questions relating to what goes on here, who's involved, and how do things happen? How is care organised? Who makes what decisions? Again, these questions could be used to frame a central question or sub-questions within a qualitative study. Developing research questions may be understood as part of what is referred to as an iterative process of meaning making, from the earlier stages of identifying a research topic through refining of research questions with a progressive focusing approach as the study develops. This is integral to the qualitative research process. The patterns, themes, and categories that emerge from the data are very much developed and driven by what the researcher wants to know, the kinds of questions that are asked. The questions asked will include the broadest of questions, or statements of intent, developed in the earlier stages of the process, as well as those questions that are asked as part of data collection, and those questions that are asked when you have the data, and are seeking to understand what is going on here in these data. This idea of iterative meaning making is running through the process and is integral to the chosen theoretical frameworks and to intuitive understandings. So, rather than being an objective, detached process, it is a highly reflexive one. Reflexivity is central to the qualitative research endeavour. The researcher gives thought to the social roles or positions being occupied by both themselves and the participants, the subjects of the research. As mentioned already, the research questions will change over time as increased understandings emerge. The importance of writing is integral here. Being able to transparently track the analytical process is crucial and central to the entire endeavour. Reflexivity is about how the researcher makes explicit the knowledge claims being made through the entire process, from generating initial topics, the refining of questions, methodological decisions, to analytical approaches. This is really important when you consider how qualitative research produces particular kinds of knowledge, and how you want the study to be credible, trustworthy, and stand up to methodological scrutiny. Being robust in design and generating sound questions is an important element of a good qualitative study. How do we identify qualitative research questions? It's important to acknowledge that very often the thinking tends to begin long before the first drafting of research questions. Many postgraduate students begin by thinking about a study based on a deep interest in something they have already begun exploring. This notion of exploring existing issues, here from the student's own health and social care practice, will entail creating early, provisional questions. These questions will be already determining decisions about theory and methods, and invite and generate a series of more specific questions that help to create a focus. Having an intellectual curiosity, sparked perhaps by a practice incident, or coming across an existing research paper or a conversation, can often lead to rich avenues of thought. Sometimes research questions are developed from what is currently of concern within society more broadly. An example here is the recent policy attention being given to health issues such as obesity, or the role of cheaper alcohol on increased or changing drinking patterns. Having a particular political perspective on, for example, violence against women, or child protection, or a particular professional perspective developed through conversations with colleagues, may lead to identifying a need for qualitative studies around a specific topic. Other ways of developing your ideas might include being inspired by attending a conference presentation or reading a published article that resonates with an aspect of your own concerns. Another factor to take into account is the disciplinary perspectives of the existing research. Your interests as a practitioner within a particular profession will most probably influence your perspectives on your research and the questions you think are important to ask. There may be a gap relating to a particular disciplinary focus. The research topics that you generate will undoubtedly be influenced by your own interests, skills, and existing knowledge. Having a subject that has particular meaning for you often helps to sustain you through the research process, and projects generated through postgraduate studies may turn into lifelong specialisms. Generation of research questions which are driven by considerable commitment, desire to know, and a wish to make a contribution to your chosen field will have a vitality, enabling you to maintain enthusiasm throughout the inquiry. So, having hopefully conveyed how enthusiasm and passion can help carry the research through, an essential first question to ask yourself is, does the proposed problem or issue or question warrant doing the research? The development of an appropriate research topic depends upon having a clear purpose or aim. Your developing ideas here will be informed by reading the existing research literature and seeing whether and how your research has been explored already. The value of the proposed research topic will come from making it clear why it's important that it's done. What are the gaps in existing work? This can take considerable time, as you'll be looking at existing research findings and recommendations. There may be very little qualitative research in an area, or the design of existing work might suggest an alternative methodology is required. The rationale for the study should encompass how your chosen qualitative methodology is most suited to addressing the research issues being identified. There are several ways of moving through the process of becoming more specific in framing your research questions. Having thoroughly read the existing research around your chosen topic area, discussed with supervisors and colleagues, and perhaps written out some tentative possibilities, you'll need to narrow things down. Addressing and completing the sentences here will help you to clarify what you're thinking of doing and why. Some of the methodology literature talks about framing qualitative research in terms of aims rather than questions, as a statement of intent or qualitative purpose statement. There's a need here to ensure the inclusion of specific elements, particularly the purpose of the study, the chosen phenomena being studied, for example, drug use and injecting behaviours, experiences of bullying, meanings associated with being overweight, getting older and losing social networks. You should also ensure the language is in keeping with a qualitative study, using words which indicate this is a qualitative study. Explore, discover. Also important is the identification of where the research is located in terms of setting. A needle exchange clinic, primary schools in suburban city, a diabetes service, a sheltered community care setting. Here's an example drawn from Cresswell's text. It outlines clearly the purpose of the study within a specified research tradition. The participants are included, and you would state here the setting as well. You could use this as a preliminary template to enable you to frame your own purpose statement. On this slide you can see how research questions can be located within the preliminary design of the proposal. Research questions serve to narrow the purpose and tend to take the form of a central main question or questions, the most general questions you could ask, followed up by sub-questions which ask more specific topical questions. It's important that you use the language of qualitative research in framing your questions, using words like how and what, and being clear what you are going to explore or describe. I indicated earlier the questions will continue throughout the iterative process, and here on this slide you can see that asking what happened helps to craft your description. Asking what was the meaning to people of what happened helps us to understand our results, and asking what happened over time helps us to explore the process. Here is a suggested script for a central question, which you can complete with your own research concern or central phenomena. Within my own research concerns, I might say, what does it mean to experience using heroin by injection? And following this up with, what injecting behaviours do women engage in as a heroin user? The next slides will illustrate how research questions have been framed in some published qualitative studies. The references are included at the end so you can read the entire studies and see the integration of the theoretical and philosophical framework of the chosen research tradition with the research aims and methodology. Here is an example of a research question in a published phenomenological study. What the slide here illustrates is how the qualitative research question has been framed as the aim. The design of the study is clearly aligned with the aim. This study, informed by sociological ideas of emotion work, also has an overall aim, and then more specific issues to be explored. The research design for the study draws upon interpretive philosophy to provide insights into perceptions, meanings and experiences of these participants, student paramedics. The author, Williams, gives her rationale for the chosen approach as the lack of existing research on this topic warranting an inductive approach which aims to generate theories through investigating the phenomena of interest. The researchers here have selected a qualitative descriptive design for the secondary analysis of focus group data. They justify this design as a naturalistic approach to inquiry, which produces what they refer to as a meaningful summary of the data in everyday language, and support this with a reference to Sandalowski. Their intention is to produce a description of challenges that students face in the clinical setting that will be relevant to students, educators, and policymakers. This is an interesting illustration of the iterative nature of developing research questions, in that the original study purpose was to facilitate the identification of unsafe learning situations from the student's perspective. They have revisited the data from different perspectives, having undertaken data analysis, and now want to ask different, emerging questions. The approach to grounded theory adopted in this study is described by the researchers as following Sharmaz's constructivist approach. This approach to grounded theory acknowledges that the researcher is an active part of the research process, retaining a focus on the importance of the informant's perspectives, whilst also using other sources of evidence in developing the final grounded theory. Within the session then, we have looked at some important elements of developing qualitative research questions and how a credible qualitative study will have clear questions or aims, which are located within a coherent design tradition. We have explored why we need a research question to help us navigate the research journey and keep us on track, whilst also reflecting upon how these questions evolve through the process. The kinds of question that can be addressed using a qualitative methodology was considered, along with the notion of an inductive approach. Patterns, themes emerge from the analysis, and how this analysis depends upon having the right questions, or adapting questions as understandings deepen. The need for reflexivity throughout the process, from identifying possible topics through the refining of questions from the earliest stages through to the later writing up and perhaps asking different questions as a consequence of writing, was also considered. Identifying researchable questions that are grounded in the context of lived experiences is not without its challenges. It requires creativity, care, and a fair degree of skill if a worthwhile project is to be developed that can inform evidence-based practice.